the Fed rate cut by then, perhaps Governor Das gets a little prodded by the GDP data to also look at rate cuts. Just a quick word on GDP and what Governor Das said before we get to stocks, because I think that's an important thing that happened over the weekend that we should quickly address. So what happened is that India quarterly GDP came in at a 5-quarter low. The number which came in for the April to June quarter, it was below estimates. It was expected that it would in fact be lower because of base effects, etc., but it was still below estimates. It's grew at 6.7%. If you compare to the previous quarter, it was 7.8%. Quite a few factors over there, guys, which were expected. So you had elections, less government spending as a result. Agriculture was slow at 2% growth versus 3.7% year on year because you had heat waves. And all of the above, manufacturing though zoomed at 7% for the quarter versus 5% year on year. But I thought the conversation or the comment from Governor Das was important, Samina.
And just before that, I think private consumption has done well. So if you're looking at precursors to what's expected going ahead, the fact that service is looking better, private consumption is better, but of course there are some who've gone out and said that we need a rate cut, and if you don't get that rate cut, the recovery, but I think that's being a little overdone, given that this is cyclical, this is seasonal, you had the budget, you had elections.
It's also telling you when government doesn't spend what the economy looks like.
Private consumption is seeing early signs of pickup, so I would take heart from that, and also there are measures in the budget on the MSME side. That gives me hope that manufacturing and service will pick up. We are seeing green shoots in terms of rural. Now the flip of it is, you saw the earnings. Corporate India is still not being able to contribute as much. So while there is a point, but I don't think it's all dark. I do feel like Moody's has upgraded us in other news, which is also a big positive.
Yeah, so lots of positives, but let's get down to
Forex
stocks.
reserves at record high.
I just want to play out what Governor Das said,
quickly,
because that was an important bite. His comment on the GDP data and why you should not worry is just important. We'll quickly hear that.
Reserve Bank's projection was 7.1%, but actual number which has been given by the first advance estimates given by the National Statistical Office is 6.7%. Now obviously 6.7% would give an impression that, it is lower than 7.1, goes without saying. But if you look at the components of the GDP, the main drivers of the GDP growth, whether it is consumption or it is investment, or from the supply side it is manufacturing, services growth, construction sector growth. I think all the sectors, the growth is 7% plus in the first quarter. Two aspects which have slightly pulled it down. One is government expenditure, which is both central government and state government expenditure, perhaps due to the election season between April and June, and the operation of the model code of conduct of the election commission. Government expenditure was lower in the first quarter, and when I say government expenditure, it is both central and state government expenditures. But going forward, we would expect the government expenditures, that is both state and central government expenditures, to pick up and provide the required support to growth. The other thing which was slightly lower was agriculture, which grew I think at about 2% or so. But first quarter, it's the second quarter really. Second quarter onwards, from July onwards, the monsoon has been very good. And
well, we're hoping on rural recovery, a better monsoon, and hopefully the GDP number starts looking better sooner than later. Forex reserves also at a record high for India.